Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another Saturday show, which is actually on a Saturday today, so great. And we're a long way apart. I've managed to get back to the UK, and Stephen is now in
Asia.
and
Yeah.
he's in quarantine.
I'm in quarantine.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. It's acceptable. It's good. 3 meals a day, 3 solid meals a day, and well looked after by the team here. So no, happy to be back in this part of the world.
Yep.
It does make time zones for most of my work so much easier than it was when I was in UK. But I'll have to wait for the next Nutter barbecue until I return.
Yep, and you'll be looking leaner, meaner, and fitter with that 35 to 40,000 steps you're doing every day.
No, I must confess, I did 12,000 today because the jet lag starts to hit me around sort of day 2, 3. So I've actually been in my scratcher over there for a lot of the day. So I need to play catch up tomorrow. So my target is 20,000 a day, which is pretty decent going in a 40 square meter hotel room.
Good lad. Proud of your son. Now, the last couple of weeks were taken over by the football, and unfortunately, the football what a terrible outcome. Gutted last Sunday.
Yeah, I was watching the football with another colleague of ours, Terry Ramage, a good Scotsman. So him and his darling wife Wendy were watching the football in London, and I must confess, I butterflies in my stomach, particularly during penalties, but also what was clear that whilst we spoke the week before, Chris, about the continual need to tweak the strategy or to tweak the tactics dependent on play and how things are moving for you and how things are potential to go against you, or what other subs the other team might bring in and how they change their play, whether they go more defensive or go more forward. And Southgate had done, and this is not a criticism, this is just a fact really, that Southgate had done until the final an extremely great job in that. And I just felt like the second half, England were nowhere to be seen. They sat back, they didn't push forward. They were a very different team to the one that they saw in the first half. Had they got a second goal, I think it would have relaxed them and settled them much more so than they were. As a result, the change tactics halfway through the second half, but by that point it was already kind of too late when Mason Mount came off and Jack Grealish came on. Yeah, I thought that was a really good switch, and you could see the immediate change, more play in the midfield. And that was really, really good. But I was sitting next to Terry. Terry's had sort of an avid football expert. He used to play. I think Terry, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he used to play because he listens every week. Semi-professional football or professional football. I can't remember one or the other. I'm sure you and him could share a story or two, Chris, about Paisley United or Brentford Rovers or whatever they were in those days. But Terry was beating the commentator to every line. They came out with a few seconds later. He said, "Oh, this is," and of course the commentator was then coming out with the same kind of language. So it was really interesting to sit next to an expert, because I'm not an expert at football. The only time I watch football is during World Cup or Euros or something of that kind of magnitude. But I actually learned a lot from listening to others in the room, which we would not have been able to do had we gone to a pub, because the hooligans and the louts would have been out. But very sad, disappointing. And of course, the fallout and the aftermath from it had been even more disappointing. So whilst I'm sitting here standing with Palestine, I also stand for stamping at any form of racism in that sport. It's just despicable what we saw after that.
100%. That's what I was coming to. I was well. Firstly, the tactics. I think. I just even if the 2 young lads, Rashford's a different case, but if the 2 young lads, even if they desperately wanted to do it, I think you should have brought them on a lot sooner so they had a good feel for the ball, rather than come on and take penalties straight away. The only thing I think he should have done, if he had a little bit of foresight, is he should have named himself in the squad 30 seconds before the end of extra time. He should have put himself on, taken his own penalty, and cleared all that 25 years of torment, and that would have been a fantastic way to win. But the fact that the lads, as young as they are, stood up, fair play to them. But I agree with you, Steve. What an awful, awful embarrassment with the
Well,
way they were vilified afterwards. It's absolutely ridiculous.
well, I think these young lads have done more for their country in the space of 5 or 6 weeks over a tournament, Chris, than most people in the country that are leveling that abuse at them will ever do for their country.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't suppose any of these louts have done anything for their country of meaningful value whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that was appalling. But just back to the youngsters. I mean, these are 19, 20-year-old kids. Whilst they can kick a ball about amicably and they kick a ball about as pros and they stand a good game on the football field. I mean, when I think back to when I was 19, 20 years old, yes, you were a bit gung ho, and yes, you were a bit kind of, you're a bit kind of maybe a little bit arrogant or cocksure or all of those sort of things that go through. But at the same time, when you did get a knock or when people sort of battered you down again, I remember feeling the emotion, when I was sort of, at the airport and you were in your first job and you wanted to do things right and things weren't necessarily going the right way and you got a little bit of a bash by your governor. When I say a bash, could be a physical bash as well as a mental bash in those days. Or you get tripped up on the ramp, as you were walking through. But when you took a bash, I mean that did affect you quite significantly. So I've got no ability to comprehend, whilst it's a minority and it does not excuse the behavior, I can't comprehend what those guys are thinking. But if even just a little bit of what we used to go through at that age, when you think how vulnerable you were, and these guys, despite being on the international field, and I think they handle publicity extremely well. I mean, I think all of the interviews that they had given prior to that, Chris, in front of the TV cameras, they were just, I mean, as you said last week, there were no big shots. There were no kind of the one or two star players like the Linekers or the Gazas or those kind of days where the Beckhams, they took all the limelight, took all the spotlight from everybody else. That team was very equal, in terms of its hierarchy, and the lads all seemed to get a fair crack at the TV cameras themselves. But they did that with such grace and good gusto that for them to suffer that afterwards, I just thought was absolutely bloody appalling.
Yeah, plus the mess and the damage and awful. And when you see the Scottish supporters after that game and they went back and cleaned up, it's so easy to make a good impression, but it's just far too easy.
I'm not sure I saw many Scottish supporters cleaning up, Chris. I think I saw 2 or 3.
No, I'm talking about the previous game. There was good.
Yeah, I saw the previous. Yeah, when they were in Trafalgar Square, Leicester, so yeah, the mess that they left with them was appalling.
Yeah, but it's just awful now that people are doing this. But what's even worse, Steve, is the fact that they're able to do it anonymously, and these platforms now. I think they've got to do something which ties you in. You cannot get away with this now and keep getting away with it. It's wrong.
No, totally. And it's got to. The government will have to take divisive action. I mean, great to see this week. I think on Wednesday already, the Prime Minister announced that anybody who's been leveling this kind of abuse on social media, thinking that they're anonymous and get away with it, and if they're identified, they will be banned for life from every football stadium in the country. Yep. And I think that's a great step forward, but we've got to do more. I mean, some of the stuff that I read was just despicable, and I thought these people should be locked up.
Yep.
Lock them up, and throw away the key, because they can rot in their jail cell, as far as I'm concerned, because they add no value to the fabric or the construct of our nation.
Yeah, no, it's terrible, awful, and hearts go out to those young lads. Everybody's done something like that, and it hasn't gone the way they want, but you want people to rally around you like most people do, and fair play to them. Good lads, and good luck now with Qatar next year. Touch wood, please God. Now, Stevie.
We can get that shifted to England. That'd be nice. That'd be a nice switch.
I don't think that'll happen, mate. The other thing now is the fact now that, and as a result of that, and the case is going up now. I mean, it's going crazy. Going crazy again, and I know you.
Well, it is.
We differ on a few things, which is why we.
Why we're here.
Which is why we get on so well. But I definitely think now, it's going to go gung ho. Freedom Day on the 19th is going to be fantastic, but then it's going to be like a Monopoly game, and it's going to go directly to jail in October, because come October, I think there's going to be another major lockdown, and it'll be a very, very strict one.
Well, on the cases, as I said last week, I think it is pretty unhelpful to keep reporting daily cases. I don't think that helps. That was a metric of value in the past. It's no longer a metric of any value whatsoever. What's important is those that are becoming, or what we are seeing certainly is that the vaccinations have reduced the stem of people going into hospitals, reduced those that are in hospitals that are being admitted into intensive care units. And it's significantly, so 50,000 cases a day, 8 deaths. I mean, that's clearly a significant breakthrough in terms of breaking the link or severely weakening the link between death and catching the virus. The second point, Chris, is the United Kingdom does in one day 1.2 million tests. It's not positive, that's test, 1.2 million tests. And the whole of the European Union did, it's in the same day, 1.1 million. So I'm sorry to sort of take a bit of a Trumpian view on this. But of course, if you test more people, you find more positives. So the positivity rate of the UK, I think, was something around 4%. The positivity rate of the country in which I'm now in is 12%. In some countries, up near 15% or upwards. So there is clearly a direct link and correlation with the amount of tests that you do, the amount of positives that you find. So I'm not so worried again, therefore, about the positive cases. That's an immaterial measure on the impact of the virus. The impact of the virus on the community surely is on hospitalizations, which we were told it's all about protecting the NHS and protecting the vulnerable. They are now all protected. They're now all vaccinated at very, very high levels in the UK compared to many other nations that have got, you know, much lower vaccination rates than we do in the UK.
Yep.
The problem we've got is we've got a young society. So to come back to your link about football, you know, yes, there may have been some additional cases from the football matches, but how many of those cases were fully vaccinated, and how many of those cases were as a direct result of a youngster attending a football match or a social event or whatever? So, and if none of those or very few of those ended up hospitalized, I don't really see what the issue is. What is the issue?
Yeah, no, and like I said, don't get me wrong. I see what your point is. I'm just saying, but if it does keep going and going, I honestly, I think there'll be another lockdown. I hope not, please God, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen if the numbers keep going. Now,
yeah, but they should stop reporting these numbers. These numbers are alarmist, Chris. When you see numbers that are in 50,000, 60,000, it'll be 100,000 within a few days, I'm sure. Now, it doesn't bother me because every night I go into a great website called Our World in Data, and I look at the facts, and I forget about the rhetoric in the Daily Mail or the Sun or the Express or the Telegraph or, heaven forbid, the Guardian or the Independent, who the Guardian would have us locked down for life. Professor Susan Mitchie, the Guardian's preferred sage scientist, would have us locked down forever. Says that masks should never be removed from society. Yeah. So these are the kind of people that write for these publications, Chris. So if you go into Our World in Data, which is an excellent site with all sorts of data from all countries all around the world, it really actually starts painting a picture. So hospitalizations, ICU admissions, and death rates are the ones for us to pay attention to, in my uneducated view.
Yeah.
That's what influences. That's what should influence the control measures. But these numbers at the test at the positive case level are what government are using to defend potentially extending a little bit more, or might look for another lockdown, or we might get the operators to talk about masks again because we're not going to talk about masks ourselves. That is directly impacting, Chris, our industry and our ability to get people flying again. It's directly impacting things like knee-jerk reactions where the government, Mr. Shapps, I mean, again, Mr. Shapps, you've let us down again. We are not surprised. You are consistent. At least you are nothing but consistent. Our expectations were set, and you met our expectations with great merit. Which is you have now moved the Balearics from green. Sorry, my Alexa just decided to have a little conversation to herself there. We've moved them from green watch list to amber, which, Chris, would not affect you and I because we are fully vaccinated.
Exactly.
And as a result of being, slightly older than the usual crowd that might go to Ibiza, it would have no impact on us because we could carry on about our business in the usual way when we return to the UK. But it has unfortunately impacted a lot of the.
We were there for a meeting, and had we been a little bit younger, well, you a little bit younger, me an awful lot younger, we could have been really, really affected by that. Just bang, just overnight.
Yeah, that's quite ridiculous. Quite ridiculous. And I've looked at the case in the Balearics, as you know.
Yeah.
I have a vested interest in the Balearics. Therefore, I was astonished that happened, given that I've seen the caseload there is nowhere near what it is in the UK. But the pièce de résistance, Mr. Shaps thought he had us on that one. He did not.
France.
He had us on France. We now
Shaps
have France in a new category, all on its own. It's called the French category, the French list.
Yeah.
So now, even if you are double vaccinated and you come back from France, you will still have to go into quarantine or self-isolation at home, which I think is appalling. So another one of our colleagues, Mr. Lynham, who regularly jaunts off to France as a small chateau. Not sure I'm doing it justice. It might be a grand chateau, but anyway, he has a small holiday home. I know that he would be deeply frustrated by that, as many others would, who, in the British Dordogne, they'll be up in arms. Sacre bleu. Dépêche-toi. Ça suffit. Ça suffit, Chris.
Mate, you sound like a young Del boy there.
Mange tu, Rodney.
Yeah.
No, and a serious point, Chris. This is doing our industry a great deal of harm.
Well, it is. You look at the share.
A great deal of harm, and we mustn't underestimate the impact of it. So, whilst I can exercise my French every now and then, having a sort of a slightly tongue-in-cheek or gin-in-cheek view on this occasion, it is very serious. It is impacting not only people going on holiday, and I think the holidays are one thing. You and I have been very fortunate being able to travel and move around. A lot of people haven't had a holiday. One, because they're financially struggled to live through the past 12 months without sort of the support of furlough and so on and so forth, and that's been tough. But actually, more people have been visiting. Whilst we may have left the European Union, we are a European nation still, and most of the people that I know are all in I was going to say into relationships. That doesn't make sense, but into European relationships with family members from France or Germany or Spain, and they've got people stuck all over the place. And so the thought of trying to see them and just get there rather than going on holiday for 2 weeks, it wasn't necessarily that. It was actually just go and spend some time with family and friends that they hadn't seen for a long time. And I think that is the issue. But what that directly translates to for us in the airlines is jobs, Chris.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People were brought back, particularly when you looked at EasyJet last week, as a colleague from EasyJet was telling me, we're operating 1 or 2 flights a day to the Balearics. They're now up to 18 or 21 a day. Well, what do you think that is now?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that comes back to what we were talking about and what we're going to be talking about even more. The recency of training, the familiarity of doing certain things, that's going to now just go all over the place again.
So you can't just switch people on and switch people off. It doesn't work like that. To bring people back takes time. It takes some conviction also from the company to do it, because there's an impact to them doing it. But also, Chris, the handlers, the taxi drivers, the hotels, the operators, they're all really excited, looking forward to get, particularly Ibiza, where 70% of tourism in Ibiza is Brits. It's slightly less than half in Mallorca, my chosen island, because we're competing with the Germans for the sort of the number one. But and Menorca is very British, as you know. So these nations rely on us. So whilst they've been able to accept other tourists from other parts of Europe over the last 6 months or so, whilst the rest of the Schengen area has been open. It was the Brits they were looking forward to, unusually so.
Yes.
Normally, they can't wait to get rid of us by the time the end of the season comes in October.
Yeah.
But they were really looking forward to it, and of course, all these campsites in France and everything down the west coast, will be suffering also. I mean, I just think that's a very British market. So so the Brits will be locked out again. So pity, the tour operators in the UK and the airlines, but also I do think about the broader impact on an island that I spend a lot of time in Mallorca, which is heavily reliant on tourism. 80% of the economy is derived from tourism, Chris. It's appalling. Just appalling.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, some people, they say, well, you bit of a tosser thinking about your holidays or travel or whatever. But actually, I would say you bugger off. People got every right to think about their holidays after 15 or 16 months of being separate from families or are not able to travel. And so for something to look forward to, for the average Brit to look forward to a holiday, I think is the right thing. But of course, you get these naysayers looking down their nose at you. So I would just be staying in the UK. Let's all go off to Newport Pagnell or Saltburn by the Sea. I'd say no, thank you. As lovely as Saltburn is, or Great Yarmouth, I prefer to be on a beach in Mallorca. Thanks very much. And it's none of your bloody business if I'm there or not.
Yeah, but one of the things that has happened as a result of some of the places you just mentioned there is where the property prices have shot up. Anything from 5% to 25% down in Newquay. I mean, it's incredible.
I'm happy to be in the property investment game, but wouldn't spend any time there.
No. But seriously, there's winners and losers everywhere. And talking about being unlucky, how unlucky is it to have the wrong brand linked to something like this? So you've got Delta Airlines, they're refusing to recognise the Delta variant. They just call it the variant. And you've got poor old Corona beer. It's it's a little bit of an own goal as well. When those things happen, it's terrible, isn't it?
Well, I think you can look at these things too seriously. I mean, I think Delta Americans take themselves too seriously anyway, generally about life, and so they should probably lighten up. But it doesn't surprise me that Delta, one of the laggards when it comes to air carriers and in the industry, are thinking like that. No surprise.
It's also, we're talking about Delta. They've got a strange one now. One of the pilots he's put a lawsuit up for $1 billion because of the fact that
Did you say 1 billion or a million?
$1 billion because of the fact that he feels that they stole his app idea back 4 or 5 years ago, and so he's really gone for it. So who knows what will happen there?
Because pilots are really good historically at developing apps, Chris. That's really what they do well
in their spare time. But nonetheless, it's ironic that people are still doing these sort of things. Now, Steve, something else that I know we've spoken about, where you see these, the world's top COVID-19 compliant airlines, and you've now got, I don't know what it is, 119 fully 5-starred COVID-19. But the one thing that none of them have are 117 out of 119 is that they don't have reference on their website about the actual COVID measures that the company is embarking on, etc. So it's all about these little tick boxes, which I just think is not good. It's not right.
Well, it's utter bollocks, quite simply.
I was looking for a term, and there you are again. You've delivered it straight into my hands like an Amazon package turning up on time. Utter bollocks. Was that the word?
Which you got from me last week, little Amazon package.
Yes,
I sent you a little gift of something.
You did, and everybody this week, especially the Irish in the group, they loved it. I couldn't believe why I would be turning up with Barry's tea bags.
Because your little mate here sent you 3 boxes of them.
Mate, it hit me right here. There was a little tear in the eye when they turned up.
When they kept drinking your tea.
I was mad about it. I sent you a message on that already. I said I'm a bit mad how much tea they started drinking.
So back to your question, Chris. We spoke about this before. I do think these awards and sort of programs are completely contrived. without sort of throwing anybody under the bus, I won't mention any specific organization. But these organizations typically that have sponsored this typically charge for their marketing services or for their brand or their award to be associated with the airline. And these airlines typically pay them consulting fees or a fixed fee for use of their 5-star awards or their 4-star awards or whatever. They go through the assessment, and then they're encouraged to do a little bit of consulting with that company, and then they can get a nice little sticker on the side of the airplane. I'm sure we've all seen them and we know who they are. So they branched out into COVID health and COVID safety, which of course they knew nothing about. But then neither did we, neither did you, neither did most of our listeners, I suspect, at the time. So maybe they found a little niche. Maybe they found a little niche that they could exploit. And what they chose to do was they chose to exploit it, and they did it good and proper. They did it with airports and with airlines, and I think there are 2 or maybe 3 different schemes. I think the validity of and the integrity of which the award is premised on is fundamentally wrong. It's a self-assessment survey, as far as I'm led to believe, and once you have gone through your survey and you've completed the answers, they say, well, look, you don't clean your aircraft with this kind of this regular frequency or this thing. Maybe we could encourage you to do it here, and that might upgrade your rating. So actually, what you should be doing is can you give them that you're compliant? Well, you just know what to do. So yes, I'm compliant. Tick. And of course, you get to the end of it. Of course, you send it off. They assess it, and then they come back and say, oh, you're a 4-star COVID safe airline. To display the award, you need to pay me $25,000. And you pay $25,000 for the privilege, and you can put it on your website, and you can put it on your airplane. And I mean, it's just a joke, Chris. It's just a joke. So that's the scheme is. They're pretty similar as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I understand, for the airline and the airports. I think as a marketing tool for these organizations, it has very time limited value. Obviously, these organizations have lost a lot of revenue from their normal business. One could say they've gone after an opportunity, and the airlines and some of the airports were naive enough to fall for it. And they went through the process, and then only at the end did they say, you've got to now pay for it. And they went, oh, well, maybe that'll separate us from the rest. Maybe that'll make us stand out in a crowd, in the same way the likes of Emirates did, whom I flew with the other day, by the way, who were absolutely fabulous. Call out to all of the Emirates crew of London on Dubai the other day. It was superb. It was great to be back in the seat. But
I'll ask you afterwards what seat.
2 kilo on the first sector and 1 alpha on the next sector. Yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely. Anyway, but the Emirates very early on, Chris, that I was slightly left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth that Emirates were trying to exploit their ability as a government or a state-owned carrier to vaccinate all of their crew first before the vulnerable people inside. I just thought that was really distasteful. And they were trying to use that as a bit of a marketing plot. It doesn't matter now because largely the developed world is vaccinated. And it's a developed world that are traveling now more so than others. The A's and the B's, I suspect, are traveling. The only ones that are traveling at the minute for either business or critical or urgent reason, etc. Yeah. But so I do think while separating, making yourself stand out in a crowd is important in normal business terms, and the USP is important. The little sort of differences that you can offer, nuances over one carrier or another are important. In this case, I don't think it's particularly helpful. However, it's only you, me, and probably some of our listeners that are aware of how these schemes operate and how contrived they are. I don't think the public will know that. And therefore, when it comes to the consumer's choice, I suspect that they may well be influenced by some of these awards.
Yeah, which is there. I mean, I also just some of
that's the raison d'etre.
Back to Del Boy again. Yeah, some of the numbers.
The only language that I studied actually was French. So there's only one that I can speak with a decent amount of credibility.
But you do it. You do it so well. You do it so well. But I could just see you there now with a sheepskin coat, great big la-di-da, pouring yourself
a great stogie.
Yeah, pouring yourself a cocktail. Yeah, the younger version of Del Boy.
I prefer a whiskey personally, Chris.
Yes, don't I know, Stephen? Don't I know? Don't I know? If I get another tattoo, mate, I might even put the name of it on my arm. Now, coming back to the effect that all this uncertainty is having, those shares, it probably cost me. It'd be less. It would be less for the tattoo than it would have been for that pot of whiskey. The share.
If you were a whiskey man, you would have enjoyed that yourself, Chris.
Yeah, I would have done. Yeah. The share price, Steve, incredible how it's been affected over the last 2 weeks.
Well, I think the markets are. I mean, when I look at some of the stocks, I mean, I'm not massive in this game, but some of the financial services and banks and so on are doing particularly well. When I look at property in general, I mean, being a property owner in the UK, it's pretty good right now. Money is still very cheap, and despite the stamp holiday ending at the end of last month, well, the major stamp holiday, I mean, it drops down now, but the major holiday ended at the end of June. That's pretty transactional. So I do think that markets will be volatile, Chris. I mean, it's we're not here to give advice to any listeners or even to ourselves, because I take a bit of a punt normally when it comes to leisure stocks, particularly when it comes to airlines, and I've never done it very well when it comes to airlines. My best ever was Ryanair. I mean, Ryanair was an absolute stonker. I mean, the returns on Ryanair and still held are fantastic. But I think whilst this volatility still exists, one thing that markets don't like, the one thing investors don't like is uncertainty. And I think we've still got a huge amount of uncertainty, and I think that is probably causing a little bit of consternation when it comes to the institutional investors.
Yeah,
I think the mom and pops will do what they normally do, the retail investors, but institutional investors will be sort of maybe taking a little bit step away from some of these stocks that are very volatile or very dependent on some of these restrictions being lifted. So no surprise there. But look, I mean, I think that there are still a few good bets out there. It's not for me to advise anybody, but I'm going to stick with my picks, which are IAG, Ryanair. Those have been long held by me for a long time, and I've done very well in Ryanair. Too well probably, but IAG is yet to be seen.
Yeah, but I mean, after the drop, they've gone down 20-odd% in 2 weeks, so they got a nice little bounce back again. But I agree with you, and we should make a caveat.
It's a buyer's market, Chris.
We are not here to advise anybody to do anything with their money, just like some of the numbers that we quote might not be the actual detail, but it's there for effect. So with that, and that's making a big impact at the moment, and it's also IAG, so a nice little segue there, Steve, is this fast bag drop and the Twilight drop. So they're looking at now checking your bags in anywhere on the process, and also picking it up from your home for £19. Or you can come in the night before when it's a little bit not as busy, and you can drop your bag off and save a little bit of hassle when you're there getting ready to get onto your flight.
Well, isn't that wonderful that British Airways have caught up with Virgin Atlantic, who've offered that for 20 years at Gatwick? It was called the Twilight check-in, if I remember. The idea was that given that Gatwick was sort of, or the Gatwick Virgin operation was heavily leisure dependent, leisure oriented, was that a lot of these customers would stay overnight in as was then, the Le Méridien or the Hilton.
Yes.
There was none of these new places, Premier Inns or Premier Lodges or Sofitels or anything fancy. It was just the Le Méridien or the Hilton at Gatwick for many years, or the Copthorne, if you remember, Chris, the Copthorne.
Oh yeah.
So look, I mean, fine, British Airways doing that. There's nothing new. We could say it's kind of back to the future, I guess, because that's often the way these things are. But British Airways are not doing it because they've been forced by, a customer sort of demand. They've been forced by a failure in the airport to deliver a service that British Airways pay handsomely for via their customers. The APD, and the UB tax, as we know in the industry, the UB tax, the passenger service charge, the combination of which I think probably is in the top 5 highest in the world for departing Heathrow, if not the highest. And therefore, as a passenger, I expect Heathrow service. And when I expect Heathrow service, I expect everything to work. British Airways, as the largest single tenant carrier of Heathrow, would expect the same. So British Airways are having to reinvent their product offering because of failings by HAL. Am I surprised that these things are failing from HAL's perspective when they blame the fact that the NHS COVID app pinged 100 security officers this week in Terminal 5, and they were queued for 4 hours through the airside security screening point? I think that's despicable.
Yeah.
John Holland Kay, the CEO of Heathrow Airport Limited, is very quick to apportion blame to others, particularly the government. And so I'm wondering why John Holland Kay has been so very quiet this week when it comes to failings on his own doorstep and his own watch.
Please continue to watch, because I'm sure we'll have an answer very, very shortly. But I agree with you, Steve. It's terrible. The queuing and some of the services now are, and again, it's this business where don't know when to start, don't know when to stop, don't know when to stagger, don't know when to forecast. It's very tough for them all. Very tough. Now, again,
you're such a politician, Chris. I go off apportioning responsibility to the tenant, to the landlord, operator of the airport, and you try to soften the blow a little bit.
No,
I like it. It works well.
I'm just, I think if the two of us were skiing a few years ago, I would have gone off piste as much as you probably got myself into a lot of trouble, which I did. Now
I've got couple of broken feet and ankles and things to show me.
I'm a little bit more cautious. That's all. But when the time comes, I will let myself go just as well as anybody else, mate. Maybe more so. And with that extra bit of weight behind me, the speed picks up very quickly.
Yeah, you will reach terminal velocity far quicker than I will.
Yeah. Now, another good segue. It's a nice way of putting it, mate. Yeah, well done. Another segue there into from company to company. You mentioned Virgin, and Mr. Branson's trip there up into space and coming back down again. Okay.
I can't believe that wasn't our headline item, Chris. That should have been top of the credit, top of the roll.
No. But I mean, fantastic what's happened. But what I thought was incredible was the amount of requests for inquiries about how to get on there. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but a 1 hour flight is going to cost $250,000 And there's already a 600 waiting list who've put the deposit of $10,000 down. On that list is Mr. Musk, you got Tom Hanks, you got Lady Gaga. And I just wondered, was there an S. Dickson on that list as well?
Not on your Nelly.
Hey, not on your Nelly, even for a 1A or a 2K or wherever, no?
Looked all the same to me. I didn't see the caviar or the Dom Perignon P2.
Well, it's incredible what they've done, isn't it? And how you mentioned earlier about Back to the Future. You know, this is stuff that we've seen on TV programs and what's that? What was that? Family Robinson, things like that. You know,
Family Robinson. Was it Heath Family Robinson?
No, not Heath. I can't remember. It was a show about a family that were lost in space or whatever. But
Jetsons.
No, not the no. But anyhow, but the thing is, I mean, it's incredible what's going to be happening now over the next decade or two. It's amazing.
Look, I have never. I mean, I'm quite interested in the ocean. I think a lot of people have got interest in the natural world and planets and the solar system and I remember as a kid going to visit the planetarium just near Baker Street in North London, and I wasn't all that taken with the planetarium. I was never really interested in the solar system, Chris. And whilst it's really interesting, I'm I'm certainly curious. And I was very fortunate to have flown on Concorde, where I did see, the outer rim, if you like, of Earth's atmosphere. I've always been more interested in what's below the surface, and I'm very much into the oceans and into marine life and marine biology and sea life, and I do think there's an awful lot about the ocean that we don't know, and I enjoy diving, I think, as you know, and some of the best diving I ever did was actually in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we were.
Yeah.
But you know, I've been more interested in the sea, and I love being out in the boat, and I love being out in the water, and so I can't really get all that excited, I must confess, about space travel. What I do get much more excited about, and it sort of gives me a little bit more excitement, is ocean exploration.
Would you?
And so
So would
I'd be
you?
much more interested in joining one of these little subs,
That goes down
that
to
go
the
down.
deep place.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Yeah. We did a podcast. We did a podcast with a captain who got the Guinness Book of Records for circumnavigating the world and going over both poles. And that was one of the things that he was going to do. Obviously, COVID stopped him, but he was going to do that. He took one son to the pole, and he was going to take the other son down to the depths of the sea. It's incredible. He's a real sort of adventurer. It's fantastic. But that's what you'd prefer to do rather than joining Mr. Branson on a flight up there.
Yeah, well, last time I joined Mr. Branson, I was serving a cup of Yorkshire tea, not Barry's, but that was the last time that we met. We had a cup of tea together. So I wouldn't be sitting next to him or his compatriots in the what was it called, Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, Virgin Galactic, that's right, yeah.
I'd much rather be doing some ocean exploration. Yeah.
We'll bear that
With Jacques Cousteau. I mean, if Jacques Cousteau could come to a dinner party, he can't now because he's sadly passed away. But if Jacques Cousteau could come to a dinner party, that would be my idea of greatness. I would rather be there with Jacques Cousteau than I would be with Armstrong, for example. That would be my view.
Yeah. Putting you on a spot now, like that old game that they play. Who would the 5 people be if you were able to have a dinner with anybody from past?
Wow, just giving one away, haven't I?
Yeah, that's one. But it doesn't matter whether they're dead or alive. If you could bring them all back for one evening,
dead or alive.
One evening, who would you have?
Okay, so Jacques Cousteau, I think, for the reason I just mentioned. Margaret Thatcher, I suspect you knew that she would probably be in there.
Yeah.
Another one, possibly. You have put on the spot. What was the lady, Ellen MacArthur? What was the circumnavigate the lady pilot, circumnavigate the world?
Yeah. Right. So we got that.
I think Winston Churchill would be, I suppose, a good bit of a good laugh and a giggle.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry would have to be there. And I think I'd go for Dame Helen Mirren.
Dame Helen Mirren, blimey.
Dirty old.
Hey? You like the naughtiness there, hey? So
I potentially either Dame Helen Mirren or Joanna Lumley, one of the two. I'd check with Dame Helen if she's available first. If she wasn't available, then Joanna would get the ticket.
Blimey, hey, there you go. But that'd be a good evening. Well, funny enough, you got 2 there that I would add as well.
Go on.
I'd have Churchill. I'd have Maggie, definitely. I thought she was a brilliant lady. My God, incredible. And then I think I would also have, who would I have? I would have Billy Connolly.
Oh,
I'd have Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
I'd have JFK.
Oh.
And I would probably have had George Best, but I think I'd sling George Best out just to give Maggie a little bit of company, and I'd bring Liz Hurley in.
Wow, Joanna or Liz?
Huh?
Well, I tell you what, we could just have one in the interest of sort of demonstrating that we're not misogynist, is all female.
I like her as well.
Well, I'm going to say, why don't we get Joanna, Dame Helen, Liz Hurley?
Mate, if I could have the 3 of them at dinner, I wouldn't care who the other 3 were.
I also say maybe Elizabeth Taylor would go down well as well.
No, I thought I didn't. I wasn't too keen on that. On that.
Right. Yeah. Nancy Sinatra.
Too much maintenance, too much work there. I wouldn't be interested.
Yeah.
But Muhammad Ali, 100%. Churchill.
I just to mention Muhammad Ali, I had a
100%.
encounter on my flight, Chris, with Chris Eubank.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
what a terrible, terrible thing. Bless him.
I bumped into him in the lounge in Heathrow,
Oh,
and then I suddenly realised that
he was on his way out
the
to
the only one of the two flights on the board at that time was Marseille or actually it wasn't. I think it was Frankfurt. It was Frankfurt or Dubai. And then I realised that he's likely to be on my flight, and sure enough, he was. And so I just offered my my humble condolences. Not that he knew me from Adam, but I just thought that was the right thing to do. And he seemed appreciative. But he was there with his other son, younger son, Chris Jr.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, Chris Eubank is a world, was he middleweight?
Yeah.
No, yeah, middleweight boxing champion.
Big fight against Ben.
And he his son, who's only 30 years old,
Yeah.
with a 1-month-old baby,
Terrible.
died suddenly of a heart attack on the beach in Dubai.
Oh, it was a heart attack. I thought he drowned.
Heart attack, Chris.
Oh my God, mate! How terrible.
And he had an undiagnosed heart condition.
Good Jesus.
So I just thought then, you know, again, everything, you know, when you see these people, his badge on, and that's why I sort of if I didn't know, I mean, I clearly knew it was him, but if I didn't know it, with his sheriff's badge, as I call it, you know, and his trademark, and I just thought that puts things in perspective.
Yeah, what a terrible when that happened. Well, it's terrible when anybody goes, but when it's a young person who's just, you know,
exactly, starting their life with a young family.
And when it's quick and as sudden as that, with no chance for closure or preparation or anything, it's awful. Yeah.
So I guess, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel we have to finish this now on
a bit of lift, positive.
A bit of a lift, mate. So what do you suggest?
Well, I have to say, whilst you know, we've seen some, you know, changes with European restrictions being put down again. You know, we've seen the UK obviously concerned about the opening up. We've seen Netherlands opened up and now closed down again. We've seen France opened up and now closing down again. You know, there has been some really positive moves in the US.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think the US now looks pretty much back to normal. From what I can understand, whilst they still have the you know, the high caseload, there is a you know, there's a very sort of strong return to normality. The North American carriers have returned, you know, a lot of the capacity that they had taken out already. I don't know what numbers they're at, but I suspect they're way back into the north of the 60s or 70s of where they were before, particularly in domestic capacity, if not more.
Yeah,
somebody please feel free to correct me, but from what I'm seeing anecdotally, Chris, I think, you know, North America is looking pretty good. I'm hoping, therefore, that bodes well for the UK and the EU to come to an arrangement to get travel back open back into the US ASAP. I know Boris and Mr. Biden set up this task force. So assuming when Biden's not asleep, you know, he's working towards having a resolution in place ASAP to get that travel reopened again. But so, you know, I speak sort of a little bit sort of cautiously there, because I think whilst it's positive what we're seeing in the US, there are still some issues to overcome with the Europeans, and hopefully that will be overcome very soon. So I think getting the UK, US, and the Europe, US reopened over that over the North Atlantic will be a great step forward for particularly the likes of British Airways, Aer Lingus, Lufthansa, etc.
The only thing I'm like, not to put the mockers on it, but the insurance. You know, the confidence of people going over to have insurance. God forbid if they were hospitalised over there, that's going to be a big barrier. You know.
Yes, I always check my policies. My global healthcare, which I've had to access more often than I'd like, is worldwide, except USA.
Yep.
So each time I go to the US, I have to pay it's not travel insurance, it's full medical cover, but I have to pay a premium. But I've got no desire to go there anyway. I personally, it won't benefit me, the US opening up, because I dislike the US for many different reasons. But I think for our industry, it would be very helpful.
Okay, so for all those listening, that was the lift at the end of today's podcast. So we sort of pulled you along, and then in typical Dickson style, bang. So sorry to all of our US friends. Big apologies, but there
I
it
didn't
is.
say anything bad.
No,
I personally don't like traveling to the US.
Personally, yep. Now I know a couple of people that have got the same sentiments, but having lived there and been there,
I know one of Mr. Ambridge will be right there up with me.
He probably would be. Oh, he's had his first vaccination now.
Mr. Ambridge had his first vaccination. Congratulations to Thailand.
Yes.
A slow but steady rollout in Thailand.
Yeah, he's had his first one. Yeah, he looked like Hannibal Lecter when he was in the picture with it, but he's definitely had his first one. Second one in October. Right, Stevie boy, I'll let you get back. I know how late it is.
Come October, it was time for us all to get back to work by October then, Chris.
It will, mate. Please God, touch wood. Can't wait. But take care of yourself. So
Thanks a lot.
Next week you'll still be in quarantine. So we'll see.
I'll still be here in my. I hope you like my studio. I've done a good job here with the lighting, and I don't know if Salim commented, our technical director, but I thought I did quite a decent job here. Set up.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing you bearded with a colleague called Wilson sitting in the corner with you next week after you've been there for a further week.
My colleague's called Zoe, but she's not here. But that'd be great to have my dog here, wouldn't it? In the quarantine hotel.
Mate, I don't know whether that'd be a good thing or a bad thing, mate.
It'd be great for me.
Yeah, great.
Man's best friend.
Yeah, you're not able to take her out.
Yeah, that might be a problem. Yeah, she might be climbing the walls.
Yeah, go with a Wilson character, a nice football or a rugby ball or something, and just put a face on it. Keep talking to it. Anyhow, we look forward. I hope you don't go stir crazy. Keep those steps.
No, I quite like it. I quite like quarantine. It doesn't bother me.
Keep those steps going, and we'll see you next week. Always a pleasure.
Cheerio.
Take care of yourself. Looking forward to next week.
Thanks, Chris. See you later.